Bowie is gone. Henson is gone. And someone somewhere in some very expensive meeting decided that, well, that wasn't a problem. Now look, I'm not here to tell you that this film is doomed. I'm not that kind of person. Or am I? Maybe I am that sort of person. I am here to ask the question that's not being asked. Can you take two of the most irreplaceable elements of a film, and I mean genuinely structurally irreplaceable, and still make something that deserves to exist? Because that's what they're attempting right now as we speak. And the answer is more interesting than you think. Now, if you've watched my previous video on the Labyrinth, you know the film and you know why this matters. People are fiercely protective of a film that, well, borders on devotional. Mention this to the right person and you'll see something that happens in their eyes. Warmth mixed with something almost like defensiveness. Don't touch this, this is mine. That's not the response of someone who enjoyed a movie. That's the response of someone who was changed by one. The darkness at the centre of the Labyrinth, a villain played not as a monster but as seduction, a story about the cost of growing up. Henson trusted his audience with that. He didn't sanitize it and he didn't explain it away. And then there was the other thing, the thing that no sequel can manufacture: David Bowie. Now, Jareth wasn't just a character played by Bowie. Jareth was what happened when Bowie walked onto a Jim Henson set and everyone just let him be Bowie. Theatricality, the voice that could shift from lullaby to menace in a single phrase. Those weren't acting choices, they were the essence of a man whose entire career had been about performing a self that was larger than ordinary life. Now, you can't recreate that, you can only try to find something equally irreplaceable. So the question, now the only question that matters before we talk about directors or casting choices or box office performances, does the sequel even understand what it's trying to follow? Because looking like the Labyrinth is not the same as being it. This project was announced in 2014, a decade of false starts. Directors were attached and dropped. Scripts were drawn up and then thrown out. Now, Lisa Henson admittedly and publicly stated that they just couldn't crack the right script. Now, that kind of patience is either a good sign or a warning sign, depending how you look at it. But it tells you that the Henson estate is not willing just to put out anything and attach the Labyrinth name to it. Then in January 2025, Robert Eggers signed on to write and direct. Now, here's the first name drops. My last film that I worked on was Werewolf. So Chris and Eleanor Columbus producing alongside Brian and Lisa Henson. Now, I've worked for Chris Columbus on Harry Potter, really nice guy. I told you I'd be name dropping. Now, Eggers is one of the most uncompromising filmmakers working today. His films are dense with folklore drenched in historical texture and absolutely unwilling to be comfortable. He doesn't make crowd pleasers, he makes experiences, usually dark, often punishing and always singular. He's not the obvious choice for someone to write and direct a beloved fantasy film, but that's precisely why he might be the right one. Because Labyrinth at its core was a dark fantasy film, it trusted the audience, and Eggers is, above all else, a filmmaker who trusts his audience. He knows how to build myth, and he knows how to find the ancient, unsettling thing underneath the story. The question isn't whether he can do something interesting with Labyrinth. He almost certainly can. The question is whether he can make this feel like a sequel, or just maybe another Robert Eggers-esque film. Now, the Bowie problem. Now, we have to confront this directly. Before Eggers was officially announced, reports emerged that Alexander Skarsgård was in discussions to play Jareth. Whether that remains the case is unknown. Trust me, I've looked, but details have gone quiet on this. But the very fact that they were talking about recasting Jareth forces the central question into the open. So David Bowie died in January 2016, and he left behind one film performance so thoroughly himself that, well, it might be impossible to recast. And you can't recast this the same way you would recast any other role. This isn't James Bond, where a character exists independently from one actor to another. Jareth was Bowie. Well, there's only really two honest paths here. The first one is you don't recast. You acknowledge the absence as part of the story. Jareth could be gone, transformed, diminished, and then the world of the Labyrinth would be changed because of it. The absence could be the film's engine, essentially. Now, the second is you find someone who brings something so wholly themselves to a new character, not a Jareth replacement, but a new figure from that world. Then the comparison becomes irrelevant. Don't ask the audience to accept a new Jareth, give them something they've never seen before. What you can't do, what the film absolutely cannot survive, is a competent, committed actor trying to be Bowie-esque. But here's the thing, this problem has been solved before. Think about Return to Oz, the 1985 Disney sequel to one of the most beloved fantasy films ever made. Now, the Wicked Witch of the West is dead. Margaret Hamilton, who made that role iconic, is gone from the story entirely. So what did Walter do? He didn't recast her. He didn't find someone to do a Margaret Hamilton impersonation. He introduced the Gnome King, a completely different kind of villain. And then alongside him, a terrifying Princess Mombi, a head-collecting witch. Now, Mombi is vanity given monstrous form. It shouldn't have worked. Now, the Wicked Witch of Oz is the villain. She's the standard. And yet, Return to Oz absolutely works. It's a lot darker than the original. It's stranger and more unsettling, I think. And it earns every bit of that because it doesn't try to replace what came before. That's the lesson here. It understood the spirit of the world and it built something new inside it. This is the model that the new Labyrinth sequel needs to follow. Not who plays Jareth, but what kind of threat does this world produce now that Jareth is gone? And crucially, Return to Oz didn't replace its villain, it replaced its villain's music. The Gnome King doesn't sing, there's no show-stopping numbers. The film found a completely different register and committed to it. Labyrinth without Bowie's music is not Labyrinth minus something, it's Labyrinth transformed into something, and that transformation handled well. It could be the making of the film rather than its undoing. And then there's the world itself. Jim Henson built something physical. Creatures constructed by human hands, inhabited by human performers. That tactile weight, that personality born of limitation and ingenuity cannot be faked by CGI. And the good news is the Henson Company is not walking away from its own legacy. Now, I've seen this with my own eyes. I worked on Dark Crystal Age of Resistance for Netflix, and I would see Brian Henson, Brian Froud, all the Bryans, and it was a fantastic experience. They kept the essence of the original Dark Crystal film with the puppetry and then just enhanced it with CGI, really, for the sets, not for the puppets. And it worked. So Brian Henson, he grew up on those sets. He spent his entire life, his entire career carrying this tradition forward. Now he's producing this alongside his sister Lisa. The institutional knowledge there, the philosophy, the commitment to the craft is in safe hands, and that part of the equation I'm not worried about. Now, there's a real reason to believe that these two sensibilities, Eggers' darkness and the Henson Company's craftsmanship, could produce something extraordinary. The world of the Labyrinth can survive without Jim Henson at the helm. It has the right people carrying that torch. What it cannot so easily survive is the silence where Bowie's music used to be. After all that, can it? Well, here's my honest answer. Probably yes. But if it stops trying to be the original, Return to Oz is proof of concept of that. That film replaced an iconic villain, it stepped away from the songs and then darkened the tone considerably, and then it still delivered something that endured for over 40 years. It worked because it understood that the soul of Oz, that world, the wonder, the danger, child navigating a place that doesn't follow the rules, well, was bigger than any one performance. The real challenge is the music. Bowie didn't just play Jareth, he scored an emotional architecture to that film. Magic Dance, As the World Falls Down Within You. These songs are not background colour, they are load-bearing walls. And they were the entire emotional structure for that film. Whatever composer or artist steps into that space will be working in Bowie's shadow, in a way that no actor playing a new villain ever could be. Now, you can write a new character, you can not write a new Bowie. Now, Return to Oz found that answer. The Gnome King doesn't sing. He found a completely different emotional register and committed to it completely. That's the path, not replacement, transformation. Robert Eggers has never made a cash-in. If the film asks what's Jareth without Bowie, it will fail. If it asks what does the world become now the Goblin King is gone, it might be extraordinary. Return to Oz answered that question once. Let's hope Eggers and the Hensons can answer it again. But remember, it's just a movie until you look closer. I am the Movie Craftsman. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment, like and subscribe. Do you think we need a sequel? Can a sequel happen without Bowie? Is Robert Eggers the right man for the job? Leave a comment and I'll see you on the next one.
We'll pull up a seat as the lights went low. Just you and me, and the picture show. Side by side through every twist and turn, chasing every story.